There's a lot of discussion about how are roles evolving within marketing. Are there certain roles that will disappear? Are there certain roles that will become more valuable?
I think the bigger question is, can we upskill and reskill people fast enough to create new jobs and to evolve the jobs? I do believe I have seen with my own very eyes how jobs can evolve. So, very real example, there's this woman, Megan, Senior Director of Integrated Campaigns and Demand Generation at a public company. Well, what she did, she created a workflow with AI that had a campaign strategy GPT chained to a campaign planner GPT, chained to asset creator GPTs. And then what she did, she's like, you know what? Why do I stop in just the marketing function? I can actually orchestrate this with a sales enablement AI teammate and a CS onboarding AI teammate. So now it not just goes across marketing functions, it goes into sales and then into CS, right? Well, guess what, Karen? Megan has worked herself out of a job. She is no longer the Senior Director of Integrated Campaigns and Demand Generation. She is now the Senior Director of Go to Market Strategy and Architecture. It is actually reimagining work so that the business innovates and the business grows.
What if AI isn't just a tool, but your next teammate? Welcome to Reinvention by Design, where we explore how leaders build career options, income, and identity in a changing world. Today's guest has mastered the art of reinvention. Liza Adams is an AI advisor, the founder of GrowthPath Partners, and is a leading voice in how corporate marketing leaders must evolve in the age of AI. Her journey took her from immigrating to the US from the Philippines to starting in electrical engineering to building a highly successful 25-year career as a senior marketing executive until her company was acquired and everything changed. Instead of returning to corporate, she reinvented, launching her own firm just as AI was taking off. Today, she helps CMOs redesign their functions, integrating AI as a teammate, elevating strategy, and shifting organizations from org charts to outcome driven work models. This is a conversation about reinvention, about identity, and what it takes to stay relevant in an AI powered world. Lisa, a very warm welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen. So delighted to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too. And Lisa, let's start at the beginning. So you started off in engineering and then moved into marketing. Tell me more about that reinvention and what prompted it.
Yeah, so I've always had this uh, knack for turning weaknesses into strength, right? With every underlying weakness, there's an inherent strength. And growing up, Karen, I was not a good reader. And that is one of the reasons why I went into engineering because with math, I was very good with math. And I don't necessarily need to read a lot of things. I would just go to the back of the chapter and start working the problems. And that was the entry into engineering. And what's interesting about that is I loved it and I went into the workforce doing engineering work, but I found that I was also a pretty decent storyteller. So, and I was able to translate fairly technical things into stories that are more relatable to the masses. And while I had this love for technical design and innovation, I found that I was able to capture not just the minds but hearts of people. And as they say, when you capture hearts and minds, the wallets follow. Not that I was in it for the money, but I just felt like there was something missing if I was constantly thinking about technology, but not necessarily thinking about the human part of it. So that movement from engineering to marketing was fairly intentional in that I wanted to combine hearts and minds together using my love for engineering, but also just my passion for connecting with people.
That's really powerful. I mean, you say something that's quite important for our later discussion around the human aspect. So tell me maybe a little bit more about that and why that's important to you to bring in that human storytelling aspect.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a bit more personal, but I've been so open about it over the last decade or so. And I used to be um, very guarded and embarrassed of my personal story. Poor little girl in Manila who, was only eating one meal a day, and then now being generously welcomed into the United States and be given all these opportunities. And as they say, we're like turtles on a totem pole. We never got there without any help. If others have inspired me, then I want to inspire others. And I have realized that my story was a platform by which I can, help inspire others. And then now I'm continuing that, right? Although there's an underlayment of technology and innovation and AI, it is not my passion. My passion is around three things: it's elevating the strategic value of marketing, using business as a force for good, and ensuring diverse voices at every table. AI just happens to be an amplifier of those passions, and I continue to tell my story to amplify those.
And you touch on a lot of things related to identity as well in that. So yeah, we can go deeper on that later. That's I want to move to one of your pivot moments in your life. So a little bit later, you very successful career. But in 2022, your when your company was acquired, there was a big change, your role disappeared. What went through your mind at that point?
Yeah, um, I've always worked for very large technology companies, and I've been so fortunate, and I have a lot of gratitude for that, right? Because I learned from some of the most innovative companies in the world who are changing people's lives. And then I found this one company here in Colorado, a very, very small company in the beverage alcohol supply chain, found me, and I fell in love with the company. And I fell in love with it because it had a purpose. It actually had a soul. It wasn't just about making beer. I was attracted by the soul of the company. And I honestly thought, Karen, that that was going to be my last one. I'm on the back nine of my career. And I said, 3 to 5 years, and I'm going to ride off into the sunset and do whatever it is that awaits me after my corporate career. Well, it wasn't meant to be. About 18 months into my tenure there, we were acquired by PE. And at that point, we all turned over. A huge majority of the executive team turned over, and I was heading up marketing there. And I found myself just almost in deep depression, right? Because I loved this company and I was counting on it. So I started thinking about whether I had it in me to go back to Silicon Valley, whether I should go back and be a CMO again, but I didn't have it in me. You know, I I I honestly, while I love these companies, I didn't have, the will to go through all the politics and all the unconscious bias that I also experience in, allowing myself to be someone who I'm not. So I decided that that was it. And I wanted to try my hand at serving on boards. And when I looked into that, I found out that there were only 41 marketers in Fortune 1000 boards, and less than 3% of all board members have marketing experience. And I was stunned by those stats. So I dug pretty deeply on why we're not on boards, and I realized and I found out that there are many reasons. Some are legitimate and some are unfounded. But one of the biggest reasons was that we're perceived as tacticians rather than strategists. People see our ads and our campaign email campaigns and our events, websites and social posts, but rarely do we get credit for our deep market understanding, our ability to ensure product market fit, the ability to build trust, build categories and lead categories. And I'm so passionate about those things, right? So what was actually really interesting was that all happened right around the time when ChatGPT launched in November 2022. And when I saw this, I realized something that probably most people didn't in those early days. I actually started believing that this is what could flip the script for marketers, that we could actually use this to become more strategic and more authentically human in our work. And it would flip the script for the perception of marketing. And so I started doing, consulting work and started leaning in on AI, not because I loved AI, because I wanted to elevate the value of marketing. And we started showing these use cases for how we use AI, not just in, churning out a ton of emails, but we were actually aligning executive teams and getting insights from AI to help us make decisions. And when I started sharing that, because I wanted everybody to begin thinking in this way, thinking about AI as a thought partner, not just as a tool, I almost unintentionally built my brand, Karen, and that's the start of where I am today.
Yeah, you mentioned the fact that it's not seen sometimes by boards as a strategic function. What did it feel like to then be doing something about that and leading that
Uh,
change?
it was such an insightful question, and it was very empowering, Karen. You know, while my corporate career um, was largely positive, right? I did feel that in some instances that I was not, I was in places where didn't have the oxygen to shine, and I allowed others to snuff the bright light, and to just be really clear about that. I think you know, I began to transform myself into someone that is more like the business to fit in rather than, believing in my passion, believing in my superpower and just shining with that. I also allowed other people's unconscious bias to influence my work. Karen, I'm a Filipino woman. I'm 4'10". I happen to serve on the executive teams and regardless of how people feel um, about people, there's unconscious bias. And I recall being in meetings where I'm next to, um, a white man who's 6'4", and here I am, 4'10". I know the go-to-market strategy, but people are talking to him rather than me. And rather than being defensive about that, I got to the point where I said, it's okay. I just need to find a place where I have the oxygen to shine. Now I do.
You
Like you and
do,
I are having this
absolutely. Yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Right.
you and I are having this conversation. You're not taller than me. You and I are equal. When I write something, people read it. When I talk, people listen. They don't have to see me. In fact, they could just listen. And that by and large, eliminates some of the unconscious bias. And I think you could just take what I say and what I write for what it's worth rather than judging it before I'm able to say anything.
You've
Right.
got your natural authority, actually. That's
Yeah.
lovely.
And I'm saying what I believe in. One of my mentors, when I was starting on this journey, said, you know, I didn't mean to become an entrepreneur and do all these things. In fact, I didn't want to be that because I'm not good in sales. And I was afraid to go into this space. But one of my mentors said to me, Lisa, if you chase butterflies, they will fly away. But if you build your garden into something that is as beautiful as you can and you share it with others, you will attract the right butterflies naturally. And I have taken that to heart. And I don't attract every single butterfly, Karen, but the ones that I do already believe in the same things and have the same values as I do. So by the time they come to me, I've already built trust, right? And many of them say, hey, Lisa, I feel like I know you so well. My sales cycle is very short. There's a lot of repeat business, and 100% of the business is inbound.
That's very powerful. That's very powerful. You dig down a little bit. You moved into your entrepreneurial journey, advising companies on AI, and everything was exploding, right? So much information everywhere. Everyone wants to move fast. Would you say that your timing was just, you know, perfect, or was it really that you had that deep conviction? This is absolutely going to change the face
No,
of how organizations are run. I want to be part of it.
I wish I was that smart and I wish I had a crystal ball, right? Karen, honestly, all the doors closed on me after that acquisition in 2022. Silicon Valley Bank, that whole fiasco happened, right? Companies weren't hiring, certainly weren't hiring CMOs. Karen, the grand plan was 3 to 5 years at this company and then retire, and it just happened too quickly. But when all the doors closed, right? I'm looking at this path. All the doors were closing, and it's getting darker. But there was like this little tiny crack, like somewhere on that road. And I'm like, well, I don't have any options but to do this. And it felt like it was leading me there, right? Because all the things were closing,
Sounds
and I'm
like it
like,
was the right door that was opening for you, right?
I really to this day do not know what happened. but I leaned into the passion. Like I
Yep.
wasn't making tons of money. I was literally going, why are we not on boards? Then I wrote this 5-page article because of all the research and I posted it on LinkedIn. It got covered in marketing profs. And then I got this fractional CMO work that ironically, this gentleman, CRO, found me in a CMO Slack channel,
Go
which was just
figure.
like the oddest thing.
Yeah.
Frank Nardi of Sin 7, he was the CRO, and he's like, I think I need somebody to be my partner in crime for the next 3 months. And I'm like, okay, Frank, I don't know you from Adam, and you don't know me from Adam. Let's have a conversation. We met here in Denver. I started working with him, and I'm like, Frank, we need to use AI. And then that was the start of realizing what's possible with AI, started sharing it with so many, and then the rest is history, Karen.
And what made that decision finally real for you? Was that the moment?
I think that was the moment. And I said, it, if I can make such a big impact in a little company, and then I realized when I share, people are listening. And they're like, Lisa, that was really insightful. Like, tell me more about that. Right. And you know what, Karen, for the longest time, I would share on LinkedIn, I would share in Slack channels. I might get invited to one or two podcasts. I don't know. There's not a lot of engagement, right? I'm like, is anybody even listening to me? Is this work even important to anyone? And then I realized that my audience tends to be those who don't naturally engage publicly because they have a persona to protect. What gave me a really big clue is that I was getting calls, I was getting DMs and saying, hey, Lisa, read your newsletter this past weekend. Lisa, you've inspired me to actually think about my role differently. Lisa, can you come in and inspire my team? Or I'm actually thinking about a different role now because of what you said. And at
Mm.
that point, Karen, I'm like, I'm doing this.
Yep, yep, you were
We'll
on the
just see
track.
what
Yep,
happens.
go ahead,
That's right.
go ahead. Well, not mistakes, but it's a learning journey if when you move into entrepreneurship. What would you say you got right, and what would you do differently with the benefit of your experience?
What I got right, I think, is I leaned into my instincts and just didn't let my past define who I was, who I am, right? Because like I said, I was boxed in my past. And there were words said to me that led me to believe that I was that, and I'm not. Right? And when you start believing what other people tell you who you are, that's the ceiling, that's your limitation, right? And I basically said, I'm leaving my past. That's not who I am. I'm no longer a CMO. I'm no longer um you know aligning to beliefs that I don't believe in, right? I'm not going to go do this. And I think that's what I got right. And the other thing that I got right was I just naturally gave. I gave everything. Like people ask me, Lisa, why do you give your IP? Like every single strategy, framework, use case study, you name it, I gave. And I still to this day give, right? And I have conversations with Claude and did I give too much? Right.
Yeah. And
um,
why do you think that is? Why is that important to you to give?
well, here's why I think I got this one right is I'm a natural giver. Any any other way would have been not right. The other thing is, here's what I found out. When I give, I find two different groups of people. There's one group that essentially takes my work and is able to run with it because there's a recipe. You can do it, right? And that's part of my what I believe in. This is not hard. We can do this. I don't want anyone to feel like this is hard. Any other technology that I've done in the past is much, much harder than AI is natural language. Like you and me, my neighbor, we can have a conversation. I can have a conversation with AI. So much easier. Okay. When I gave, people could run with it and run with the recipe and make an impact. And that's awesome. Right. I didn't get a penny out of it, but it's awesome. The reason it's awesome is now they talk about me and they give me credit and they talk about me in places where I'm not in. The other group, they're like, "This is great, but I don't have the time, nor do I have the skill to empower people or inspire them, and I don't have the hands-on experience and the pattern recognition that Lisa has. Therefore, Lisa, can you help us?" So, on either camp, there's a
Either it's
benefit to
it's
people,
positive.
and there's something that comes back to me in unexpected ways. Karen, I wake up every day not knowing who I'm going to talk to and what's going to happen, right? Because I've given, and it's just crazy what comes back.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
So I don't know how you found me, Karen, right? You were you were one of those butterflies. Like I gave, you saw, and you reached out to me.
Yep,
And then
yep.
now you're
It
giving me a
worked.
platform to give
Yeah.
some more.
Very curious on your thoughts. What do you think can keep high performers stuck when they know they need to change direction?
So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about my career, and I was thinking about all the senior executives that I talk with on a daily basis. And I have those conversations with people, Karen. They're sharing that, I'm rethinking what I'm going to do moving forward, whether that's in another company or rethinking how they lead in their current role or actually taking a different path. People are, there are many who are afraid of AI, very fearful of what it's going to do to jobs. I'm actually trying to flip the script on that. It might actually, for some, be an opportunity to redefine yourself. This might be the gift that people need.
The gift of the century.
That's right. This might be the gift that says, "Hey, you've been thinking about this other thing? Maybe now it's more possible. Maybe the timing is right." So that is kind of what I'm thinking is holding back some high performers is this belief of what might be safe. I always believe now, more so than ever, the body does what the mind believes. I'm gonna just do a parallel in AI for just a little bit. Many still believe AI is a chatbot or a question and answer machine. If we and our teams' belief of AI is that, that will be the ceiling of what we can achieve with AI. But if we actually believe that this is a tool, a teammate, a thought partner, and something that we can orchestrate into workflows and reimagine new work, then the possibilities are much, much greater, right? If we believe that we can only be head of marketing, CMO for a tech company forever and ever, amen, then that is the ceiling of what you can will always be. And that might be fine for many. People love that, right? But for those who are fighting and it feels like a boulder you're pushing up a hill because you are not that, then now might be the time to really reimagine and shift your mindset to what you could potentially be and what you really love to do.
And it's so interesting because it all comes back to mindset, what you believe and what you think in terms of possibilities and how do you break that pattern.
Yeah.
It's often
Yeah.
it's by action, taking action. Right?
That's right. We either freeze, I said this exact words in my post. This time that we're in right now with AI, we can either freeze in fear or move and take action. Our choice.
You're very passionate about, you're doing some great work. You're interacting with CMOs every day. What are CMOs getting wrong about AI right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't phrase it as getting wrong. I think it's more about, it's all about intention and having the commitment and time to do things, right? And I think when we're under such a microscope and we're operating in a pressure cooker, we can't be our best selves. And I think many in the go to market teams, CMOs, CROs, leaders of CS, we're under intense pressure. We're in a pressure cooker when the hardest part actually isn't AI. The hardest part is change management. It's the human being. It's us. We have egos, we have fears, we have politics, we have ingrained cultures and entrenched behaviors and all sorts of things. People's mindsets need to be shifted. Just like the example I just did, right? Until people aren't stupid, we simply need to show people what's possible. There's a big Grand Canyon between, or Pacific Ocean between ChatGPT console that says, "Ask me anything," or how may I help you today?" And it's a single conversation box, to something that looks like fully orchestrated workflows with multiple AI agents and humans working together, from understanding your target market to messaging to positioning, and then an email outreach that the SDRs will do in sequence, fully automated with some human oversight. Like, you go from ask me anything to that. So, you know, I don't blame people for, feeling like, what had just happened, right? Not just for the teams, but also for the leaders, to bridge that gap, to do your existing day job of being responsible to the board, managing a flat to declining budget, restructuring your team, reimagining what's possible while maintaining growth or increasing growth in a highly competitive landscape. I'm going to lose my mind.
Maybe give me an example of where you've seen that change management take place really, really well.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I've written a couple of case studies on this on my LinkedIn, and I think you'll be sharing my profile with your audience. But where I've seen it work really well is in teams where there is a champion for the transformation. And people always ask me, "Lisa, what's the common theme across your clients who tend to be more successful than not?" And I basically say there's no, t-shirt size segmentation method, like, all large companies or all small companies or all verticals this way and that way. Like, the common theme actually is, there are the ones that succeed are people first, AI forward, meaning that there's always a people lens in every AI decision that they make, in using AI way beyond improving productivity, but actually starting to reimagine work. And that these leaders are so committed to upskilling and reskilling people. And they believe that when we upskill and reskill people, that people will be able to compete and thrive in the era of AI, whether that's in a new role, in a different team, or in an entirely different company. So think about what I just said, that, right? It doesn't say everybody will have jobs in what you have today, but the company is now investing in you so that you can compete. At some point, something will happen, but now the company has given essentially the employees a gift in their careers so that they can be more competitive in whatever comes next. That is what I believe is one of the key things in just the commitment and the conviction. Because if we simply say, "Hey, I got to cut 50% of my workforce," but we don't give them the chance to show how they can actually thrive in this era, I think we're missing something there, because our existing employees are the ones closest to the work. They already understand the customers, they already understand the market. Why not try there first? And I'm not saying that we'll keep everyone. At some point, when we reskill and upskill people, we're going to run into the law of thirds. The law of thirds basically says, roughly a third will lead, a third will follow, and a third won't, and they will find their own way. And we have to be super compassionate about that last third, because that last third, at some point we will have to make decisions and put them in the right places where they will shine. Again, whether it's in a different role, a new team, or an entirely different company.
That's very insightful, especially when you see in a lot of industries, especially the tech industry, people are losing their jobs because of AI. And you're saying something very important. You're saying, why not take all of those folks and then make those investments and then have them accelerate how the adoption of AI within the organization?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Karen, while it feels like it's the right thing to do, I think it's very hard because that requires patience, that requires investments. Change management is not easy. People are not easy. We need to give them the tools, we need to give them governance, we need to give them the space to learn. We can't just layer this on top of what they're doing, right? We have to reprioritize their work. We have to give, when I say space to learn, it needs to be a safe space to learn. Like, allow them to succeed and allow them to fail. Because even in failure, we learn something. All of that is super hard. And at the same time, the board, the investors are going, now I need profitability. We need quarterly earnings. We got to meet targets. And here's my fear. My fear is even though the mind and the heart says we need to do good by our people, I'm afraid that the pressure cooker will not allow us to do that. I think we do our best to have that mindset, and that's exactly what some of the leaders that I'm working with are doing. Right, they're doing the best they can to upskill and reskill their people with what they've got today. Right, my view, when we do that, let the cards fall as they may, because now people are equipped, right? It's kind of like, you're handing people life preservers. Here's a tugboat, here's something, right? Instead of just saying, hey, I'm just gonna let you, like sink or swim, like hand them something. And I think we can't like we can't be fearful. Like go for it. Because in the yeah, just go. Like hand them some light boats. I don't care if it's like twigs and boards. I'm thinking of Titanic, right? Give them like something. And as they you never know what's going to happen in the future. But I also believe one of my mentors also said this to me: think big, start small, move fast. Okay, I've got this think big vision. You start small, you start upskilling people, giving the space to learn. I have a CMO that's doing every other a week, Thriving Thursdays and Failing Fridays. Thriving Thursdays, they share what works. Failing Fridays, they share what doesn't work and they learn from each other. My God, like
And it's a
that's
safe environment, it creates a sense of safety and
sense of safe.
curiosity, experimentation.
Exactly, Karen. I mean, like
Yeah.
these little things that we give to people, right? Over time, it builds trust. They start learning. And regardless of what happens in the future, you will feel good as a leader that you
Mhm.
gave your team something and they will be in a better position to compete with or without you.
And it takes people on an exciting adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fear less and love more, right? Is what I say about that.
Love it, love it, love it. Very interesting. You talk a lot about AI as a teammate, not a tool. We know there are
Mm,
lots of tools about out there,
mm.
but look at it as a teammate. What does that actually look like in practice? Can you give me an example?
Yeah. So before I give you an example, I want to just preface this because I've already seen the range of emotions when I talk about AI as a teammate. They're like, why are you saying that? It's a machine, a teammate that's should be like a person with emotions and all sorts of things. Here's my view on humans and AI working together. I believe that we have highly complementary superpowers and that we can help overcome each other's weaknesses. That's a mindset shift for people. And here's why I believe that. I use myself as an example. I, as a human being, I have super bad memory, Karen. I also can't be my best self every day. I get sick. I get frustrated. We are affected by our environment. AI, on the other hand, has been trained on over 85% of the internet, and it certainly knows more and retains more than I do, and it is not affected by its environment. Like Karen, there could be a fire or an earthquake right now, and Claude and ChatGPT continues to do my strategy and my planning and my workflows. It doesn't matter what's happening in the background. However, it doesn't have context about me, what I'm passionate about, my business, the challenges of my clients. I have to give it all that so that I get relevant responses. And it doesn't have my moral compass. Has a moral compass of its trainers, but it doesn't have mine. So I have to guide it to tell it what's right or wrong. AI is a mirror of intent. I want it to be a mirror of my intent. You use it to cheat, it will cheat for you. You use it to strategize, it will strategize with you, right? So when we bring humans and AI together, we can actually achieve so much more when we use it responsibly and we think about it as teammates, as complementary to us that helps overcome each other's weaknesses. Okay, did that make sense?
It does. So is that why you see the route to the fastest impact?
Yes. And to just make it super clear, what I mean by AI teammates in marketing, AI teammates are AIs that we train, build, maintain, manage, and guide to do a very specific task or workflow. Right? So I'm training this AI or a sequence of AIs to help me with campaign planning, campaign execution, campaign performance management. And by the way, it's trained in the way that I think about that with my processes, with my best practices, and I, as a human being, guide it along the way. Or I check it at the end and make sure that it has the right response or the right output. So it helps us with the execution. But to this day, I always say, hey, I use AI to give me ideas, but I'm not ready to outsource the final call or the judgment and decision to AI. Maybe at some point we'll get there for certain things, but that's how I'm using AI today as a teammate.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. And if you were a CMO in a large organization today, where would you say they're getting momentum the quickest?
Yeah. So three things. First one, lean into your trailblazers because as a CMO, you can't do this alone, right? Your trailblazers will be those who are leading in and are beginning to reimagine work. Shine the light on them because they will inspire others. They will drive momentum, right? And this is kind of like that, you can't do it alone. So find people that can help you. So that's first thing. Second thing is, you know, again, back to the think big, start small, move fast. Rather than just like doing everything, there is a place for mass experimentation because that's how we learn. But at some point, we need to be so intentional and do a few things right. And one of the key ideas that I share with CMOs is pick your pick one or two of your top initiatives, top strategic initiatives, and pick one or two use cases and align them to those strategic initiatives. I would guarantee you have a better shot at achieving success when that happens because those strategic initiatives, they have owners, they have budget, they have timelines, they have resources, they have the eyes of the executive team, maybe even the board. They want that to succeed. And if you align an AI plus human workflow to that, guess what? You're going to have a lot of support, right? So that's one of the key things. Start there, make that hum, achieve some successes, and then it will just grow from there. People are like, oh, let's do that again. Let's keep adding. The third thing is, I've had many CMOs do this. They find the biggest areas of pain. Like one of the CMOs that I worked with, her biggest area of pain was so tactical. It was translation and localization, Karen, because literally she was having to train. Like she was spending millions of dollars translating and localizing every single customer facing asset into 8 different languages. So literally, she had three field marketers in Europe and Asia and in North America and in South America. Um, do some custom GPTs to translate and localize assets in native language because they're native language speakers. Now, it doesn't mean that now it's all outsourced to AI. The team still had to check its work, but they got this thing to 80 to 90% accuracy. And then now they saved a lot of money, agency fees, and a lot of time, millions of dollars as a result. Super tactical, but had impact to the business super quick. So those are my three things.
A few takeaways from that. So you firstly said involve the people. You've got your ambassadors or your high performers in
Trailblazers.
there.
Uh-huh.
Pick your priorities. What's going to be very visible to the company, key initiative, and the third P is like you've got your pain points. Whatever's going to solve a pain in the
Big
organization.
pain.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. All right,
Yeah.
just staying on marketing for a minute, and then we're going to move to some rapid fire questions. But there's a lot of discussion about, okay, how are roles evolving within marketing? Are there certain roles that will disappear? Are there certain roles that will become more valuable? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah. This is a big one, Karen. I do a
I
lot of
saved the
deep
big
thinking.
one till the end. Yes.
I do a lot of deep thinking on
Yeah.
this because it is very real and stressful for many. And if you think about the innovations that have come before us, we had time. So in the internet days, communications, client server computers, we had to wait for fiber to be laid in the ground. We had to install Wi-Fi towers, right? We had to build cloud infrastructure. Like that took time, and we as human beings were able to like catch up, because we had the luxury of time. AI, on the other hand, it's levering off of all of the technology and innovations that have come before it that's already there. There's already infrastructure in the ground. There's already cloud infrastructure. There's Wi-Fi. There's all these things, right? And then it's layering intelligence on top of it. And now, because as a result of that, it can go super fast. So that is my fear that we cannot upskill. My fear is, I think the bigger question is, can we upskill and reskill people fast enough to create new jobs and to evolve the jobs, right? That's the biggest question in my mind, and that's again the reason for me saying upskilling and reskilling is so critically important. The other thing with this is I do believe I have seen with my own very eyes how jobs can evolve. So very real example, there's this woman, Megan, senior director of integrated campaigns and demand generation at a public company. So you can imagine her role. She plans for campaign, she orchestrates a cross-functional team, she looks at the performance of the campaigns, all sorts of things. Well, what she did, she created a workflow with AI that had a campaign strategy GPT chained to a campaign planner GPT chained to asset creator GPTs. And then what she did, she's like, you know what? Why do I stop in just the marketing function? I can actually orchestrate this with a sales enablement AI teammate and a CS onboarding AI teammate. So now it not just goes across marketing functions, it goes into sales and then into CS. Well, guess what, Karen? Megan has worked herself out of a job. She is no longer the senior director of integrated campaigns and demand generation. She is now the senior director of go to market strategy and architecture.
Awesome. Yeah.
Fantastic, right?
New
She
role. Yeah.
new role, and
Yeah.
her job is different. Her job
Yeah.
is building these AI teammates. She orchestrates them. She gets insights from them so that she can figure out pivots and strategy based on market insights in near real time. That is something that wasn't possible before. This is not just about productivity. It is actually reimagining work so that the business innovates and the business grows. That's how we
That's a fantastic example. Yeah.
that's how
That
we
makes it
rethink
real.
roles. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for folks who are in organizations but maybe don't have that kind of luxury, aren't given that opportunity, and they want to take control of their own learning, right? And it's easy to be overwhelmed. There are so many courses out there, so many things you can do. If you had to pare it down to the essentials of what marketers should focus on learning, what would that be, and where should they go to get the best knowledge?
Yeah, so there's two aspects to that question. I think one aspect, which is I think is even more important than tools and AI, right? One aspect is develop yourself as a T-shaped leader or employee. T-shaped leaders or employees basically have deep expertise in something highly valuable. Yeah, you could be a digital marketer, you're deep there, or you're CMO, you're deep in marketing, but not in CS and sales. That's fine. But now the critical thing, the T part, the horizontal part of the T, is that you can actually work across teams. You can build these relationships. You can align people across teams. The more we develop that expertise, the more highly valuable we are.
And that's a
Because
very human expertise, right? That's very
human expertise, that's right.
human orchestration. Yeah.
Human orchestration, human knowledge, right? Like you don't need to be deep, but understand, how they connect together to deliver end-to-end customer experiences, right? Okay, once you understand that, then learn how AI can augment what you don't understand in those other functions. So now we begin to see how humans and AI work together, just like Megan, right? She wasn't an expert in CS onboarding or sales enablement, but she used AI to augment what she knows, right? So start doing that. So there's that human aspect of it. The other aspect of this is, hey, I'm learning just like you are and everybody else is. Like I say, I'm not an expert, right? Like I just happen to have more time do this because it's part of my job. But I listen, I'm an auditory learner because I said, I don't read because I'm very slow and there's just certain things. Um, but podcasts, listen to, join communities. My God, communities, they talk about a lot of things, a lot of use cases. People are so giving because no one's an expert. We're all learning from each other. And I
We're
learned
all
so much
learning.
from so many, right? The more like we are in a race. My good friend Andy Crestodina said, we are in a race for who can be the most generous for
Mm,
brands and for people.
mm.
Those who are generous will get so much back. Like when we're generous as a brand and we put everything out there, guess what? We're training the LLMs. The LLMs see all these things, and they ultimately, will highlight what it sees, right? But if you gate everything behind a paywall, it doesn't see any of that. Same thing as humans, right? You share in communities, and as I mentioned before, you will be amazed what comes back to you.
Love it, love it. So we're winding up towards the end of the podcast. So we're gonna end with some quick fire questions.
Oh God,
Just say the first answer that comes to your mind. Don't overthink it.
I'm not.
Okay, first question: clarity or courage before reinvent?
Courage. Courage,
Courage.
because I have no
Okay.
clarity.
Second question: one identity you had to let go of when you became an entrepreneur.
One identity I had to get let go of. Oh God, that I was only a marketing leader.
Next question: AI tool or teammate?
Oh, teammate, hands down.
Think I knew the answer to that one. Last question. Speed or strategy? What matters more with AI?
Strategy, hands
Love it.
down. You could
Love
you
it.
could be strategies wrong. You have good bad product market fit. You got bad messaging, bad positioning, and you use AI for speed for campaigns. Then I always say it is like doing an all-out campaign for snowblowers in Singapore, Karen.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of the session, but I always like to end on this. And the question is, what does reinvention mean to you now compared to earlier in your career?
I think now it's fearing less and loving yourself more. Earlier in my career, it was about pleasing others and trying to fit in. And now it's about truly being me.
Oh, I love that. I love that. It's reinvention by design and action. Really love it. Love it. So, to our listeners, thank you for joining us on Reinvention by Design. If you found value, like, follow, share, and start building your own reinvention plan. Thank you.